At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Oh, good.
Shall we begin?
I gotta turn this down, Bob. Fire away. He's got big balls.
Oh, well.
I knew we was gonna beat them clowns.
Holy Toledo!
So that would be an L for today.
Hashtag Faith Radio.
Let's go. Let's go, everybody. Let's go. Good morning.
I'm a kid, so I call it KFAN.
Roughing the passer.
Hey, 9 o'clock on a Monday. Welcome to 9 to noon at FM 100.3 KFAN. I'm Paul Allen. The producer is Eric Nordquist. Our Minnesota Timberwolves hooked perhaps the best in the West last night. And, well, as the witching hour approached, the result did not go our way.
15 seconds left. Ant up into the front court. He'll stop. He'll cross over. He'll hesitate. Now feeds Nikhil. Catch and shoot. Left wing three off front rim. No. Rebound tapped around. SGA's got it. That's going to do it. It was a wild night here at Target Center. Thunder built a 19-point lead. They blew that. The Wolves led by as many as 7 after that. But the Thunder come back with an 18-2 run over the middle part of the fourth quarter to pull out the win, 130-123.
Alan Horton on a play-by-play. He calls games on the radio for the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Con, how about last night? I mean, you got a game that ends right before midnight, and these teams meet again this evening at OKC with a bunch of players for OKC playing 36, 38, 38, 38. You got some guys in the 40s for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
In the business, we would call that a scheduling quirk, and good morning.
Good morning. The back-to-back, the home and home. It would feel good if I didn't feel like we were so undermanned in this spot last night without Rudy and trying to put Jaden Daniels and Nikhil Alexander-Walker maybe in some different spots. And Naz Reid has performed beautifully when needed. But the thing for me with this team, and you're right, I mean, 40 out of Jaden, 40 out of Naz last night. Ant played 39, but guess what? He should go out and play 39 again tonight. The thing that I'm getting into with spots like this with Anthony is ultimately you get the deficit, you battle back, and Ant was a big part of that. I'm excited to hear what Dane thinks about last night's game from the standpoint where I'm seeing it's too often where Ant's starting games 1 of 7, 2 of 9, 3 of 10, 11, 12, and 13 in spots, and then he brings it together. But you're putting yourself in spots specifically right now where you don't have the physical manpower, where you're finding yourself chasing all game. And so in some ways, that 40 minutes that a Naz played or Jaden McDaniels is a little bit heavier given the fact you spent so much time trying to get yourself back into the mix. It was an entertaining game, a frustrating game. I am very interested to see what the Wolves have in the tank tonight, but go down to OKC, get one back. Get the howl going on a Monday night. We need a W right now.
Elite NBA mind, Dane Moore, indeed, from the Dane Moore NBA podcast, joins about 15 minutes from now. How about our Minnesota Wild out of the break with a dramatic dub?
Vladimir Tarasenko spun out of the right wing corner. Gustafsson now to Ben Sherratt. Sherratt with the power play expiring. Back to Gustafsson. His pass stolen. Out of the box is Rossi. Eriksson finds him. Hits a clean break. Rossi and a little Talbot. Field on his shotgun and back and he scores! Hey. Marco Rossi wins it in overtime. And the Wild come all the way back in Detroit. They stun the Red Wings 4-3.
And the Golden Gophers hockey team utterly and thoroughly dominated the Buckeyes.
Two centers fall. Rinzel comes in, gets the puck. Edmanson now. He has a breakaway to an empty net. Is Snuggie. 6-3.
Snuggie, though.
Snuggie!
Big talk at Pat Micheletti about 10 o'clock on everything that is the state of hockey. And all of that will be addressed today, 9 to noon, including the Minnesota Timberwolves. Tuesday and Wednesday, Bursich and I do 9 to noon from the radio area in Indianapolis for the Combine. And tomorrow, we start with ESPN's draft analyst, Jordan Reed. That'll go into Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator for the Colorado Buffaloes. He was the coordinator of an offense that included the likes of Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Then ESPN's Field Yates. He's a draft analyst. He will join us for an elongated conversation. And eventually, former Minnesota Vikings head coach Leslie Frazier could join the show tomorrow or Wednesday. Kevin O'Connell joins tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central. So let's just get on with all of that.
Yeah.
Wednesday, from the Combine, it's the A topic 9 to noon. We will hit, we plan to hit you with the likes of Adam Schefter, Browns coach Kevin Stefanski, Cardinals offensive coordinator Drew Petzing, Courtney Cronin, and Bears Vox Jeff Joniak should be part of the mix on Wednesday. Loose, casual, OG as in original gigabytes for us because we were one of the first two radio stations to do this Combine radio programming along with a local Indianapolis bit. Our VEN Vikings Radio Network table is treated with reverence in OG original gigabytes-like fashion and respect from all who come by. KFAN.com for all the podcasting, Vikings.com for all the video. So let's play with Combine programming beginning from Indianapolis tomorrow. Of course, the NFL Draft will be part of the Indianapolis chats. And with nothing really more pertinent at this moment to discuss, we'd like to unveil something called the Dirty 30. Today's team for analysis is the Green Bay Packers. Now, this bit, the Dirty 30, is a Nordo creation, and he'd like to explain what we can expect. And good morning to everybody listening.
Yeah, good morning. Well, this is simply enough. There are 30 teams that didn't make the Super Bowl, including our favorite one. And so there are 30 teams that are headed into the Combine and the draft that have a bunch of needs, have to get over humps, have to figure out cap hell, have to add personnel that is quality and talented. Some have a ton of draft picks, some don't have very many at all. But we need to know what our foes are doing. Now, last Thursday, we spent like 3-4 minutes, Max and I did, as he just kind of downloaded everything that's wrong with his team, the Tennessee Titans picking first overall. Spoiler alert, although podcastable, free iHeartRadio app. Everything's wrong. The team's hideous, and they're picking first overall and are probably going to go with a quarterback atop the NFL draft. Now, with that said, what I liked about your theme into today and into the week moving forward, PA, is who's in front of us, who's behind us, who's going to snipe us, what's going on, and that starts here.
Border battle.
Dirty 30 in the weeds.
The Vikings picked 24th overall, PA, and directly one spot in front of Green Bay, or in front of Minnesota, is indeed the Green Bay Packers at 23.
Oh, good.
So they have the ability to snipe us big time. At 11-6, outclassed by the Eagles in the wild card. The QB was hurt early with the knee and then maybe looked to like he regressed a bit late in the season. They were third in the North. We know all of that. Here's where the Packers are at, PA, and feel free. We saw this team twice. We know them well. But anything you hear that piques your interest, let me know.
Bam.
They have all of their draft picks plus an extra 7th. So that's where they're at in the draft: 23, 54, 87, 123, etc. So they got all the picks. They have about $45 million in cap space into this offseason. So they have the ability to grab some players. That can also be changed to the good, by the way, with one particular moving on from Jair Alexander. Now, if they are to cut Jair prior to June 1st, that'll add $6 million to this cap, and then they split their dead money up, or all of it. I say the $19 million in dead money is on this year's cap. If they go post June 1st, they get $17 million in their pockets in 2025, splitting the dead money over the next 2 seasons. In the end, Didn't care about that. Too long, didn't read. They can cut Jair and get money.
And the belief, the feeling from Green Bay, home of the 2025 NFL Draft, by the way, if Jair Alexander is no longer in the covenant, well...
And the silence you hear is Lambeau Field.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the vibe that I've been getting as well. So they have 18 total free agents, but here are some key ones. It includes linebackers, started their games, Isaiah McDuffie, former first-round corner Eric Stokes, corner Corey Ballantyne, center Josh Myers, that's a biggie, D-line TJ Slayton, I know they liked him. I can't necessarily speak to his game-by-game productivity because I'm kind of looking at Rashawn Gary kind of had an off year. Quay Walker, was he as impactful? Edgerrin Cooper in the year that he had as the young cat out there. Manuel Wilson, A.J. Dillon, etc. They need linebackers with McDuffie and former Viking Eric Wilson both entering free agency. PA, that's going to be a free agent and or draft priority for them. And it's interesting. I don't know how much they pay attention to how balanced they are with the money they spend. They have an incredibly cheap offense. You think about all of those mid and late round wide receivers. They did finally just pay, Jordan Love. But for the most part, you got your rookie tight ends, and across the board, they have guys that are on really reasonable deals. So they're one of the cheapest offenses in the NFL, one of the most expensive defenses in the NFL. I don't know if they try to correct that. But the linebacker spot for them, very, very important into the offseason.
And offensively, I'm glad you brought up the payroll and the minuscule nature of said payroll outside of the quarterback, and they may have a problem with that, but that's an offseason talker. Their running back, Josh Jacobs, getting personal in public within the last couple of weeks, saying pretty much word for word, we need to find a real receiver.
Yeah. And there is your dagger!
Well, and it's crazy for him to get loud like that, but do you think he's right, PA? I don't know how much you remember a year ago this time. At least, it's not like you're just keeping track of segment by segment by segment by segment. But if you do recall, I think it was Matt LaFleur himself who came out and he alluded to the idea, we don't really have a number one wide receiver. We might have 4 number one wide receivers.
Yep.
And so Jaden Reed, kind of their do-it-all, definitely their most explosive and best playmaker. Dontavian Wicks, you can look at his box scores and you say, he had 5 TDs this year. Well, how effective was he otherwise? I think less than 40 catches for Dontavian this year. We know about the tight end, Tucker Kraft, stepping up in his second year, and he's been terrific. And Musgrave struggles with injuries, but he can be pretty good when he's on the field. I imagine, and I don't want their team to win any games, but I got nothing against the fan base. If I'm a Packers fan, how done am I with Christian Watson and these injuries? We don't want people to go, to experience bad things or anything like that. This guy can't stay on the field. He's not reliable, and he's a hell of an athlete and makes incredible catches when he is on the field, but can you trust him? But the Packers don't draft in the first round, PA. The Packers don't. I can look at names like, by the time they get to 23, Emeka Egbuka, the Ohio State cat, Matthew Golden out of Texas. Those are a couple of wide receiver names that might be in that mix at 23. Would Goody do that? I have a hard time seeing that happen, right? So I think wide receivers in need. I just don't think they actually address it via the first-round draft pick. I would bet there's a better chance of Devontae Adams returning to the Packers than there is that they pick a first-round wide receiver.
And the attempt to secure Matt LaFleur for the 2 combine shows took a fat L, as I was informed. For a 4th consecutive year, Matt is not going to the combine. He contends that he gets more work done not being in Indianapolis.
In your face, Milwaukee.
And with the way you laid everything out with the wide receivers and the linebackers and everything and all those free agents, they got some work to do.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And that includes the cornerback spot, PA, because if they are going to say sayonara to Jair Alexander, well, into the season here, they have Keyshawn Nixon. They got Javon Bullard. And then Evan Williams, of course, and McKinney. McKinney with 8 picks last year. Even though he started the season with 5 consecutive picks, good for him, a pick in each game. The one at Lambeau against us was not a catch. And I wish it would have been reviewed and reversed. They got Carrington Valentine. And that's it, PA.
Yeah, Valentine's nice.
Valentine can be nice. That's great. But with Corey Ballantyne, Eric Stokes, and Jair Alexander.
Here we go.
Going elsewhere potentially.
Yeah.
Corner suddenly becomes a spot that they might be very interested in. Now, Stokes, they've been burned by that before, right? Going back, the Iowa cat, Joshua Jackson, they did early second at Iowa.
Wow.
Kevin King was a second-round pick. He was good against nobody, except for the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, back of the end zone, interception. It was awful. And now Eric Stokes, the first. I wonder what how palatable it would be for Packers fans if they went corner at 23. But it's a very good corner draft. So they could do that, and they could sell you on the fact that, hey, there are 5-6 day one starters in this draft at corner, and you could make a play for that. So I think when you sum up where they're at in the dirty 30 with the Pack, the linebacking spot, there's a Jihad Campbell out of Alabama that kind of sits in that space. If they took him and they like him and they love him, it might make sense. But it does feel like corner's a spot in the draft for them. Wide receiver, potentially, although I would put that at the back of the list. Another part of this, too, TJ Slayton being a free agent.
Yes, sir.
What if they just go with one of these elite, high-end defensive tackles on the interior, get better in the middle, aging Kenny Clark, you play that game, and look to the future, and snipe the Vikings?
You're seeing it clearly.
It's crazy.
Because two of the defensive spots, the Vikings, if they stay at 24, on which they could hit, would be corner and defensive tackle. And you laid it out beautifully. Packers need corners. Vikings need corners. And TJ Slayton, a rotational guy who subs Kenny Clark, if he leaves and even if he stays, they still could take a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Thick and rich and stimulating as the defensive tackles seem to be, according to all of the right minds. That's good work to start the dirty 30 with the Green Bay Packers picking 23. The Vikings are 24. The Houston Texans are 25. And they're right behind us. That will be the next focus for Dirty 30, about 30 minutes from now. When we return as part of the Timber Tech and TimberTech.com What's on Deck set list, Dane Moore of the Dane Moore NBA podcast. He will take us through the Timberwolves' tightly contested, high-scoring loss to one of the better teams in the NBA last night, Oklahoma City. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. Welcome to 9 to Noon at FM 100.3 KFAN. Covers the Minnesota Timberwolves. Follow him via X at Dane Moore NBA. He also has the Dane Moore NBA podcast. And we have another one coming up a little bit later today. More on that momentarily. The Timberwolves lost a high-scoring affair at Target Center into the Oklahoma City Thunder. That happened last night. Dane joins us now. Dane, good morning, and what'd you think of the game?
What's up, PA? Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I think you look at these games and it's hard to kind of be harsh at all on them, just given how many pieces they've been missing. I do still think they kind of let this one slip away in some ways. But you know how it is, like when a team's down, 3 starters, you kind of just want to see them compete. And I thought that happened last night, so they let it get away a little bit.
And your opinion matters around here. Even down some key parts, like you mentioned, Randall hasn't played in a while. Gobert's been missing games, DiVincenzo, and so on. Even down some legitimately key components, that they play Oklahoma City pretty well. It's clear they don't fear the best in the West, right?
Yeah, and I would just like to properly contextualize how good Oklahoma City is, because if you're only kind of seen these Wolves Thunder games, you'd be like, well, the Wolves are just about as good as they are. Well, that is not the case in the other 55 games that the Thunder have played this year. They are dominating teams, particularly shorthanded teams. They win games by 20-plus points all the time. I mean, I entered these 3 games out of 4 against the Thunder thinking, you know, it's going to be hard for the Wolves to not lose every one of these games by 20 because that's what the Thunder do. So for them to even play them close, I do think is impressive, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I think a big part of it is the Wolves needing to play small these games because they didn't have Gobert and Randall. I think, to your point, maybe that's why they matched up in these games a little bit better than we would have expected.
Now, despite being plus 12 at the free throw line last night, the 12 more makes than the OKC. Head coach Chris Finch was frustrated with the officiating. How did you see it?
Yeah, I think this team has a problem with the officials. I know everybody will probably get mad at me for saying that, but I think last night aside, like, there's a lot of people who are hot on Finch for a lot of different things, and I don't agree with those. You know, playing Dillingham, timeouts at the end of the game, clutch time, this and that. I think the one thing Chris Finch is doing, in my opinion, that is hurtful to this team right now is he is further fueling the fire around officiating. And I know he's frustrated. I know there's an officiating problem in the NBA right now. There absolutely is. Talk to people around the league. This is a real thing. But these are the officials for this season. And Chris was losing his mind like 4 minutes into this game. And I do think that plays a role in Anthony having 14 technicals thus far this season. I think it plays a role in these periods of the games where the Wolves just kind of lose their head for 5 or 6 minutes. I think Chris Finch is an incredibly smart coach and person, and I think that makes him even more frustrated with the incompetence of these officials. But I'm done with the officiating stuff, man. Like, you look at the numbers in the aggregate on the season, the Wolves are not getting screwed by the officials. They're not the free throw disparity is not egregious. It's nothing like that. I think that'd be a good thing for Finch to, you know, take a deep breath on and understand that his fire surrounding this, I do think, is spreading through the group in a way that's not helpful.
Well, I mean, Edwards, as you mentioned, is up to 14 technicals. 2 more and he's suspended. So, you know, whether the coach's approach is fueling said fire, as you mentioned, or Anthony just not able to control himself during certain situations, is he capable of not going Draymond Green on it the rest of the journey, or are the tantrums just part of the makeup?
Tantrums are part of the makeup, man.
Right.
I mean, and the makeup's great. Like, the makeup's great. It's like, this is a fly in the ointment, but like, I mean, he's getting 16, dude. Like, and then he's going to start getting suspended. Like, that's what it is. I love Ant, right? But like, this is so much of the like things we love about his person, particularly covering him on a day-to-day basis, about his personality, his authenticity, his transparency. Like, that comes out in similar ways towards the officials, that is similarly, you know, not controlled. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think the Finch one, Ant's going to do Ant because Ant's a superstar and Ant is who he is. But I think Finch, my point, just to clarify it a little bit more, like, breathe as much calm into the areas of the team that you can. And I just think this team, it reminds me of the Clippers. Remember, like, the Doc Rivers, Lob City Clippers, where just like that team for like 5 years had a problem with the officials. I think that's what this group has right now. And that I don't know. It's just costly to me.
Dane Moore with some pertinent prattle involving the Minnesota Timberwolves at Dane Moore NBA via Twitter, and the Dane Moore NBA podcast also is a wonderful listen. Second-year Bulldog, Jalen Clark, Bulldog, not Bruin, but Bulldog in the way he plays, tweaked his neck last night, all right? I mean, elite tweet, one of several from Dane last night at Dane Moore NBA, paraphrasing, the Wolves won the first half with Clark in the game by 15 points. The 12 minutes he didn't play, the Wolves were minus 17. There were moments last night, Dame, specifically in the first half, his defense in the paint on Gilgeous-Alexander mostly was excellent. I mean, he's not buying the pump fakes, he's not buying the dekes, and he's staying right in front of him. That was very, very nice. What do you like about Clark's blossoming game?
You know, I'm going to take it a different direction. I like his offense. that's the biggest surprise to me in all of this stuff. Like, he was the defensive player of the year, in college. Finch and Tim Conley, when we asked him about the draft pick and what he's been this season, they were adamant on, if the Achilles heel's right, these type of players, their profile of being defensive player of the year, those hit, 90% of the time. They said that. And the defensive part hit, and like you said, the Shea stuff, yes, he's playing the defense. What I think is the difference maker and can make it so he is a real rotation player, maybe even a starter someday, is he is functional and effective on the offensive side of the floor. And it's not just the three-point shooting. He's one of those guys who's not a great shooter, so he's going to get ignored, right? So the Thunder put Chet Holmgren on him last night, quote unquote, put him on him. And they just had Chet kind of like chill by the basket, right? Let Jalen stand in the corner. Well, Jalen's not a great three-point shooter, so rather than just sitting there waiting to get threes that he's probably not going to hit at a high clip, he really involved himself in the offense. He went and going in and screening for Ant all the time. Well, if Jalen goes and screens for Ant and his guy is Chet, or Chet is guarding him, then Chet has to come out to the perimeter, and he's no longer at the rim. Swing. All right, here's Naz Reid going downhill, finishing at the basket because Chet's not there. Like, I think this stuff matters. There's a lot of players who can play defense in the NBA at a level similar to Jalen Clark, but they stay on the floor by being able to be competent offensively. And if I'm being honest, I didn't know if Jalen Clark would ever have that. And here he is as a rookie, being a functional piece of the offense while giving you that defense against Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. That's what matters, man.
In the weeds, man, that was beautiful. And with these two teams, Dane, it's crazy to think, despite the game ending right before midnight, these teams are right back at it tonight in Oklahoma City. A scheduling quirk for sure. Now, Randall or Gobert, how close are they to helping?
See, I don't know, because I wasn't around the team during All-Star break at all. Like, I was never getting the sense that Rudy's back stuff was anything serious. It's kind of this like rest. It seemed like, just be cautious with it right before the All-Star break. And he sat out that first game against the Thunder, right? And then he comes back after the break, 6-7 days off, whatever, and he's out again with back spasms. So I'm pretty sure that was just him, those like flaring up when he came back and warmed up. I'm just saying that I never thought the Gobert one was going to be a serious thing at all. As far as Julius Randle and even Dante DiVincenzo as well, I do think those things are coming here shortly. I kind of understand the order to be Julius Randle back before Dante DiVincenzo, but it's going to be interesting to start mixing these guys back in some point on this road trip, because the Wolves have been rolling or have been playing well, but in a completely different way because they've been playing without their starting power forward and center. I'm really intrigued to see how it blends back in together.
And Naz Reid clearly has been a great beneficiary by these injuries, and he scored at least 20 points 4 consecutive games. He had 22 last night in the loss to OKC. Now, Naz can score for sure, but what do you think of the rest of his game, specifically his rebounding?
Yeah, I mean, the rebounding and defense is the thing. A few games ago when Rudy was out, you go, uh-oh, right? Like, this team is now can only be in a game if Naz can defend the rim, play center, and rebound. And those are not things, as great as Naz is at the things we love on offense and shooting and the handle and all that stuff. A couple of years back, Naz was an inconsistent to poor defender and particularly a poor rebounder. I think the kid is fascinating and awesome in that he just keeps evolving, and whatever space there is in his game or opportunity, he always just scales his game to do more and fit. There's so many guys in the league who have been really good bench players, even guys who have won Sixth Man of the Year, and they get an opportunity that's like 120% of Sixth Man of the Year, and they don't fill it up. Like, we need to understand that everything Naz Reid has ever been asked to do more, he's always done. And to me, that just screams like he's graduated from Sixth Man of the Year status. This dude is a starter. This is a dude who's going to get a bag, because what can we critique him on now? Like, what is Naz Reid not doing? that's the point where I'm at. Like, what more do we want?
Do you believe he wants to start? Like when Randall comes back, okay, Julius, I would imagine, slides into the starting lineup. Do you think that matters to Naz?
I don't want to speak for him, but it's just me. I think Naz has always been, he's kind of understood. He comes in, he's behind Cat. He's understood he's in a bench role and tried to maximize that. The reason I would think it would be even more important for him to start now is if he can start the rest of the season and then he goes into unrestricted free agency and is able to, really jack up his market value, right? Like, so the last 30 games of the season, I started, I was averaging, 24, 9, and 4, whatever. I think that would be a factor. And, people would say, oh, money, whatever. Like, this dude has not gotten paid yet. This is his big contract. If I was Naz Reid, I'd want to start so I could get more money. Like, yeah, I think that's where I would be at in my head. But I think Naz is also competitive, wants to win. He will accept whatever role is given to him. But of course he wants to start, yeah.
Boy, Finchy, Chris just hated the early third quarter defense. I mean, he felt it cost the team the game last night. Do you see it that way?
Yeah, they're just inconsistent there. And, they were selling out so much to take away Shea. I thought, in my opinion, I was kind of surprised Finch said that. I thought the Thunder did a pretty good job of, adjusting right out of the third quarter to the Wolves were basically just building a freaking wall at the top of the key, for Shea to not be able to penetrate, right? And I thought they did a good job of, kind of moving the wall to the side, finding Hartenstein on the roll. Of course, Chris is right. They needed to be better to be able to win the game. The Thunder are one of the best offensive teams in the league, and the Wolves are missing Rudy Gobert, obviously. And then, Jalen Clark got hurt early in the third quarter, right? So they kind of lost. They were limited on defensive personnel. I think he's right. They needed more of that, but the Thunder are pretty good. I didn't see anything too egregious just watching it live.
OKC, the Thunder, do you believe absolutely the team in the West to beat to get to the finals?
Yes. I think they're the favorite for sure out of the West. It's tough, though. I don't know. 2 through 10, 2 through 8, 9 in the West is very interesting. I think one or two of those teams, Wolves included, right, could elevate at the right time at the end of the season and into the playoffs and be able to be playing at a level similar to the Thunder. I don't think this is a situation where, let's just put them in the NBA Finals. But this is a team playing the best basketball in the Western Conference right now. They're playing it in a modern way, and they're just out efficiencying the rest of every team that they play. They turn people over more than anybody else, and they turn it over less than everybody else. They play that spread floor drive and kick game that generates great offensive shots all the time, as we saw last night when they shot, 53% from three? That's not luck. That's the offense that they're running. I think it's a special team, and I think this could be the kind of like the Warriors thing where we were like, oh, I don't know, they just shoot a bunch of threes 10 years ago, and then it's the beginning of a dynasty. I think we are not giving this Oklahoma City team enough credit for what they are, and it might just be one of those things a couple years from now we go, how do we not see this coming? That's how I kind of feel about it. But it's the NBA. Let's see. They got to prove it.
Time for two more.
Dillingham played 10 nondescript minutes last night. What are the coaches looking for from Dillingham to feel comfortable giving him more time?
It always starts with him for what are the defensive matchups and what can you survive? Like when they played Houston on Friday night, Houston's just gigantic, right? So there's not really a matchup for Robin. To be fair, Mike Conley wasn't doing a great job either because they're both 5'11" or whatever. That's always going to be the main and forever, right? Going to be the thing that holds Rob back to some extent is not having the size, which will impact his defense. The Wolves are a defensive-focused team. The thing I think he just needs to do is play fast. And that's what Finch has said too. Put pace in the game, and then manage the turnovers. I think that's what those are hard things to do, right? To play fast without turning it over. But I think that's the job description right now for Rob Dillingham. Hit open shots. He hasn't been doing that recently. He's been struggling offensively with his jumper, but I don't know. It is kind of one of the bummers of the season, right? That this has just been pretty awkward, right? With the 8th overall pick, him and Finch were kind of going at it on Friday night as he got benched at some point. It's been an awkward fit, and I think what I've been saying on my show, PA, is like you got to remember that Rob was drafted in June, and then they made the trade in September, right? They drafted Rob kind of in the vision of the same team as a season ago, a team that needed more point guard play, needed more perimeter creation. Well, you traded Cat, who, wasn't like a handle the ball on the perimeter guy, right? For two guys who handle the ball on the perimeter, and Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo.
Right.
So I just think Rob kind of got pinched in a way there.
Lastly, the Wolves have now lost 4 of the last 5, and 3 to some of the very best in the league in SGA's team, Milwaukee, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Wolves are a game back from jettisoning the play-in scenario. Now, the Warriors have gotten hot with Jimmy Butler. They've won 5 of 6, and in watching he and Steph play together, I mean, they're just in love with each other already. The Western Conference, I mean, this is just going to be a meat grinder the rest of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is, and that's why the Wolves got this group back, ready, and they need to be the team that comes out of the West and is able to be ahead of this chunk of teams like the Warriors and the Lakers and the Mavs and all that is going to be a team that's greater than the sum of their parts, right? And I think the Wolves are the perfect example of that, where they have all this talent, and they had all this talent earlier in the season when they were, before they were injured and when they were losing a lot, and they're playing less than the sum of their parts. Can you add pieces back in here? I say that because for the Wolves to be able to get ahead of these Warriors teams that you're talking about, Julius Randle needs to be addition by addition, right? Rudy Gobert needs to be addition by addition. Dante DiVincenzo needs to be addition by addition. They cannot be cannibalizing each other because, to your point, the Warriors are coming. These teams are here, and it's going to be, you fumble this at the beginning, and all of a sudden, it's March, and you're the 8th or 9th seed. That's going to be, a problem. The West, like you said, meat grinder, no joke. I think that's why Finch has been hot, man. He knows, it's now. You got to go now. Otherwise, we're going to look back at the 24-25 season. We're going to see, a record around 500 and a 7th or 8th seed or something like that and be like, wow, yeah, that year was a disappointment. So, a sense of urgency right now.
Dane, where can people watch your podcast, and when does the next one drop?
Yeah, we're on YouTube, all the Spotify, iTunes, all that sort of stuff. If you want to watch our faces stuff, you got to go to YouTube for that. And we're recording mornings, pretty much every morning, Monday through Friday, and so those episodes come up about between noon and at 1 p.m. once we've kind of produced them. We're not live like you. I can't do that, but we're up there every day if you want to. Just about every day.
I'll be watching
some Daily Wolves content.
I'll be watching the most recent one later. Thank you very much for the time, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you about Dane Moore. Dane Moore NBA podcast, YouTubeable, and Dane Moore via Twitter at Dane Moore NBA. 9 to noon continues with some more Dirty 30 now. Dirty 30.
Here we go.
9:47. It's a Nordo creation. It's the Dirty 30. 30 who did not qualify for the Super Bowl. And 9 to noon, getting in the metaphorical weeds, getting dirty with the dirty 30, with the draft just a couple of months away, and a free agency right around the corner. So the first one we looked at today was the team picking right in front of the Minnesota Vikings at 23, the Green Bay Packers. And dirty 30 ascertained if you are cornerback and or defensive tackle needy, that team in front of you may have some functioning snipe ability.
Yeah.
It made a lot of sense to the 9 to noon host. Now, the team behind us, the Houston Texans. Now, yours truly will see their Vox Mark Vandermeer at the Indianapolis Scouting Combine. So perhaps we will have him on the radio tomorrow to talk about us and some functioning snipe ability in front of them, or them coveting somebody we covet and moving in front of us.
Oh my gosh.
That's dirty, and they're part of the dirty 30.
The draft is a snipe-a-thon, potentially. And when you talk to Mark Vandermeer in Indianapolis, ask him how he would sum up the second year of this guy.
Speaking of Ohio State, the former Buckeye, C.J. Stroud, is intercepted on the second play of the game. And the ball was tipped at the line of scrimmage, and the Minnesota Vikings have turned over the Houston Texans. Welcome to the lineup, Camus, Brugier, Hill. Ninth year from Eastern Illinois, replacing Ivan Pace, and he came up big.
Yes, he certainly did. C.J. Stroud would be the guy I was referencing there. And was there a second season regression? Went from 38 rookie sacks to 52. Completion percentage was roughly the same through 7 or 8 more picks in year 2. The offensive line is going to be a conversation. The dirty 30 for the Texans. You know, and the team won, our team won 14 games last year and really just absolutely flopped down in AZ against the Rams. Totally get it. And is it going to be J.J. McCarthy's team and all of this? There are many conversations. But when you think about, even with low draft capital, the $60 million, think about this situation. This is a team right now that has about $500,000 in available cap space.
No, that's nice.
At this moment, the Texans, they had 25 free agents. So how's that all going to work? Now, draft pick-wise, they get their first 5 rounds. They don't have a 6th, but then they have a 7th. So they got some picks to work with. 25th overall being the first one, and the one we'll focus on. Among the key free agents of those 25, as I mentioned, Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs tears his ACL. I think that plays into the conversation of a frustrating season for the Texans. Mario Edwards, kind of the elder statesman, certainly, but an insider on the D-line. I'm going to completely ruin this name. Folorunso Fatukasi. Does that sound right? Fatukasi?
Yeah, it sounds great.
I think Fatukasi.
Yeah, it's a side dish of Grugier Hill.
No, it sounds like a delicious sandwich is what it was. And he was good on the D-line on the inside for them. And so you look at the way this team lines up. Now, offensively, from a free agent perspective, not a lot of worries other than you have, on the offensive side, Stephon Diggs, as I mentioned, Robert Woods, they brought him in. Wide receiver is going to be part of this conversation, PA, because Tank Dell keeps getting hurt. And Tank Dell, when he gets hurt, it's brutal and it's tragic. As we saw this time around, he breaks his leg, I think, a year ago, and then it was even worse in the end zone at Arrowhead. So they got to figure him out. Nico Collins, 1,000-yard wide receiver, he missed some time, I think, with a hammy or something. But then Stephon Diggs tears his ACL. They're still trying to make John Mechie work. It's not. And so they're going to have some things to do offensively, maybe in the draft. The offensive line, one of the worst offensive lines, PA, in the National Football League a year ago. We remember all those penalties from Laramie Tunsil.
He finished the year leading everybody in penalties.
But Titus Howard on the right side, it wasn't working. Will they move him into guard? Juice Scruggs. What'd you think of him? Jarrett Patterson at center. Shaq Mason, a little bit older and longer in the tooth in his career. I think he came from Tampa Bay to Houston. The offensive line was absolutely hideous. At the skill spots, other than Stephon Diggs, they don't have a ton of worries in terms of roster, but can they get better in those spots? Now, on defense, PA, I mentioned Fatukasi. It's fun to say. basically every reserve player on their defense is a free agent, from Miles Bryant, MJ Stewart, Eric Murray at safety, former top corner pick, Jeff Okudah, Delshon Phillips, Neville Hewitt, Mario Edwards, mentioned him. I remember Derek Barnett in the first-round pick for Sam Bradford, and strip sack off of David Morgan on Case Keenum in a NFC title game. Half their defense, they still have Jerry Hughes has to be 45. And Devin White, the former Buck, all these guys, Chris Boyd, he's shoving coordinators, and now he's a free agent. Wonder how that's going to work for Christopher. All these guys are free agents, and they have no freaking money. So when you look at 25, you're right. There's a potential snipe-a-thon in the mix here, because to replace a Fatukasi, you can replace him with some of those names, the Kenneth Grants and Shamar? Is it Shamar Moore? Sounds like an actor. Shamar.
Yeah, Shamar Moore is the actor from Criminal Minds.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it's not Shamar.
He's Captain Cole, man.
There's a Shamar in the mix. Somebody tell me the other name, whether it's the first or the last. I apologize. Interior defensive line is a conversation they could have. Anybody on the O-line, nobody is freaking safe, save for contract obligations on the offensive line.
Yeah.
The ability to add a wide receiver to that mix would be special. Again, I will stress the fact I mentioned Emeka Egbuka. I mentioned Matthew Golden, the Texas cat. It's interesting to see how teams will view this wide receiver draft in terms of how deep it potentially is. Doesn't feel like 2020. And could the Texans wait maybe until they have the 58th pick in the second round to maybe address something like a wide receiver, where they go big on a Tyler Booker? We've mentioned Gray Zabel, some of the O-linemen that are potentially out there, to keep C.J. Stroud upright. So this is a team that is cash-strapped. They have as many, if not more, free agents than the Vikings. Now, they are in a much worse division than the Vikings, so maybe that helps prop them up a bit. But I wonder, PA, how quickly the honeymoon period ends, or maybe it already ended for D'Amico Ryan and that staff down in Texas. They do need, I believe, a new offensive coordinator as well. But there are so many issues with this team, and not a ton, even with draft capital, not a ton of resources to truly address them. I think this is going to be it's either going to be an incredibly boring and underwhelming offseason, or it's going to be shocking, and maybe a name that Texans fans know and love might have to go elsewhere just so they can figure out how to put this roster together.
Dirty 30.
Hardcore football.
The identity of the defense is the coach, D'Amico Ryans. The identity of the offense is the quarterback, C.J. Stroud. And in Michael Jackson-like fashion, may God rest his soul, CJ did the moonwalk this year. Was not as reliable. The deep game came way back to the pack, and he doesn't really run that much in the first place.
Shamar Stewart.
No relation to Shamar Stephan or Shamar Moore. All right, 3-2. So CJ was drafted so high, and he's a quarterback. Well, they need CJ to work. CJ needs to work to get that nice second contract. So CJ, despite the coach and the defensive proclivity with Anderson, Hunter et al., C.J. Stroud is the A topic.
It is.
For the Houston Texans. So what do you do to fortify an A topic like this? At 25, you draft North Dakota State University guard Gray Zabel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Gray Zabel, Texans bound.
I haven't looked at the cap situation, or the contracts, I should say, of each of their O-linemen, but they truly, if they did that, because they were awful, they were super bad on third down. It was 20 or 21st in the league, like 36 or 37%. I don't have it in front of me. And then in the red zone, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So second year, I like the way you said it, moonwalk. He was taking a lot more sacks. I think naturally they are going to gravitate and push that blame as much onto the offensive line, which I think in this particular case is pretty warranted.
Yeah.
C.J. Stroud can ball, but he needs time. 52 sacks is unacceptable. We saw how that worked out for our favorite QB in 2024. 55, 56 sacks on Sam. That's unacceptable. And it would be the same for C.J. Stroud as he enters his third season. If they go O-line in that spot, not surprised. What if they did go with a big beef eater on the defense? I mean, suddenly, I don't know obviously we got a lot of teams to go as part of the Dirty 30. Does everybody need an interior pass rusher? Is that how this thing's going to play out? Maybe that's the truth. Maybe that's just how it is in this league, but they could use that. Their defensive situation, they created a bunch of turnovers, but in the standpoint of yards and scoring, I think DeMeco Ryans' bunch, the focus of his life and the focus of his coaching, I don't think the defense was good enough either. So they can they need playmakers. And specifically, if you are going to put this team in a path moving forward, I do like your idea of keep C.J. Stroud upright. Go for the best offensive line available. If it's Gray Zabel, if it's Tyler Booker, put somebody in there to keep your guy upright. So that's where the Texans are. They got no cash. They got some draft picks, but they need a lot of help.
If you believe the offensive line for the Houston Texans is a problem point, and I'm not one to argue with you, well, then you look at the cap numbers, the cap hits coming into the 2025 season, and for the Texans, 3 of their top 5 cap numbers are on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Laramie Tunsil, $28 million. Titus Howard,
23.
Shaq Mason, 14.
Oh!
3 of the top 5. Holy cow. Gray Zabel.
And then Daniil's sitting there at 23. Nico at 18. What they have right now.
Nico at 18. That's okay. Good luck with that.
Well, but that's Nico was their 1,000-yard guy. Nico was their most reliable receiver. Nico's even with the hamstring injury, he was the only guy that could make at least most of the games.
Yeah.
But I think they're probably down there, whoever their version is of Ben Gessling or Alec Lewis. What are the levers that they can pull? Do you want to pull a lever to extend money on a Laramie Tunsil just to take some cap savings? I'd probably say not. Shaq Mason is 32.
Jeez.
How much are you going to extend that cash into the future? They're in some tough spot. Titus Howard's 29.
Wow.
They got an old O-line that is not very good. A little Gray Zabel might turn a whole picture around. Unless we take him at 24.
740 The Fan, Fargo, go crazy. This is your Gray Zabel to the Texans, leader of The Fan and KFAN.com. We depart from football for a little bit because hockey was hot this weekend in the Twin Cities. And Mick Tocchet joins us in studio to discuss all of that on FM 100.3 KFAN.